All right, what is this insane mess? Well, what this is me taking the bolts and putting them in so they don't fall out, but I don't want them sticking out of this end because it'll just push them right back out and they may come unhooked. And this is just simply a tape I've wrapped around it, and as you can see, they're not going to fall out when I move it, and they're in far enough for me to maneuver it. And then I can just pull the tape off of each bolt as I push it in, and then I can just take the tape off, and then there's no issues. That's my ghetto garage fix for the day. Okay, so here we are, and we got it in, and we can see, if we look up here, let me just turn that way. Just getting one of these two front ones that have the guide pins that I showed you earlier, all I needed to do, I got the bottom one started. I ended up leaving that one out since I figured out that one didn't need to be held in by the tape, but the other two do because they don't come all the way out. You can see this one back. Let me see here. You can see it. It's got a cover on it now. I mean, it's got a bracket that goes on top of it, a stud that's on top of the bolt for this bracket for the transmission cooler lines, and then they rub against the steel line for the power steering, which moves a little bit. And somebody else had already put, and it looked actually like it might have been factory even, with this small zip tie. That must be very strong because it's lasted 168,000 miles and 12 years, but I added another zip tie to it. It's not worn through at all, but it does touch a little bit. So if it moves, it's just going to be the rubber on the steel, not steel on steel, which would be a problem. Anyway, also did put the this little cover, this little wire loom holder, just friction fit on top of the stud. So, and then while I was under here, I went ahead and grabbed the serpentine belt and wrapped it around the bottom. As you can see, I have I don't know if you can see or not, but I actually have the tensioner is holding the belt tensioner loose for me right now. I have it, what do you call it, leveraged up there. Anyway, so now I've got all that done. So right here, got the new receiver dryer on as well now. And I showed you how it didn't fit before, but what I ended up doing was using a couple of, you can see them down there if you look, just a couple of big hose clamps. And they held it in pretty tight. It's not quite as tight right there as I would like it to be, but let's see if I can get the light. Yeah. Here, let me zoom in on that actually. Yeah, so right there, it's still a little bit wide, but you can see the clamp. I got one up top and then one down there on the bottom. It holds, it works really well. It's nice and snug in there. And then the bolts that hold the bracket, it's really snug. You can hold it, it's super tight, just like it was before. So it'll work. So last night I put the new condenser in, which is surprisingly easy to get into a 2011 Lincoln Town Car. Now this is an aftermarket condenser that came as a kit with a brand new condenser, which doesn't look, which is dirty because my hands were dirty, and it was really difficult to get it in there. You can't get this bolt out without raising the engine off the mounts, which I didn't do. But you can loosen it up enough to get the compressor out. If you look, there's a couple of guide pins right here. And it mounts with 3 bolts. And these guide pins go in the holes. And once you get these guide pins in, you're looking good. This compressor has 168,000 miles on it. And I'm a little bit bummed because it's still got compression. This is the AC condenser, comes in a separate box, and everything else comes, both boxes came on the same day, came a day early, so Rock Auto did a good job there. Usually FedEx screws you and Comes a day after they say they're gonna come. But it came with a the AC compressor. You saw, brand new, no exchange needed. An orfice tube right there. An AC dryer, an accumulator. I'll show you that in a second. All the O-rings needed, and seals, and then the oil. So it did come with the oil as well. So the directions say to make sure to drain the oil out of the new compressor. And this is the oil I got out of the new compressor. I got about 3 ounces out. I'll put a link, basically almost all of it. It tells you exactly how much the refrigerant charges and how much the oil charge is. Everybody was saying 36 ounces. It's only 24 ounces. That's for the refrigerant. And then this is the, it calls for 7 ounces of oil. And this is an 8-ounce bottle. And I'll tell you how I know there's no contamination, because I got flush. And don't get complicated trying to figure out how to do it. I just took a bottle. I put the flush in the bottle. I put it right here. After removing the old orifice tube, I squeezed as much as I can on the liquid inlet side. I probably used 3/4 of a bottle on the evaporator alone. I just used compressed air, and sure enough, I got tons of dyed oil coming out of here, like a lot. So I evacuated the system, using what is this? This is a $100 pump that we get Harbor Freight. I've used that on houses. It works fine, just takes a lot longer. That hides everything. That's the bottom. You can't see it, right? So you don't know what's going on with it. But it's not really that bad, and I don't see any holes. I do see a little bit of rust, but I don't see any refrigerant coming out of it. So the entire system. I'm not going to do the hoses if they look good, or the evaporator. But those are the only two things I'm not doing, hoses and evaporator. Now here, let's take a look at the hoses. So let me show you. Here's the new accumulator, dryer, receiver. For some reason, this one fits fine in here. And if you look at the two, they look exactly the same, but this one, the clamshell won't close. So that's gonna be zip tie Charlie or something. Speaking of that, here's the bolt that held the factory condenser in up here on the left-hand side. Now, if you look at that, it's 2 layers, right? And I look behind right there, you'll see a hole. I don't know if you can, there's nothing here. Unless you cut this out, get a longer bolt, or do what I'm gonna do and zip tie it right there. It's gonna be underneath a cover. Nobody will ever know. I'm also do the same thing over here, because even the factory one was doing this. Can you believe that? It's a huge tranny cooler on it. All right, folks. Thanks so much for watching. Come back and see us soon. Like, subscribe, and comment all those great things. Bye.